So, are you DTFF?
Once again, here's Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football with your host, Jake Trowbridge and Dustin Lunt.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to DTFF. We are excited to be here this evening. We are mere days from training camps officially starting. I know we had like some teams had their rookies report today, but really training camp does not begin in earnest until next week. But we are just mere days away from it. It gives me all the warm and fuzzies in the nether regions. I'm not even gonna lie. Very excited for it.
It's tasty. That is, if anybody shows up. I don't know. There's a lot of people just talking about not showing up at all. So
yeah, apparently people don't want to show up for work. I don't know what that is all about.
Been there. I get it.
Yeah.
I can relate.
How are you doing this evening, Jake?
Doing fantastic. You know why? Because I'm not currently at work. I'm currently here with you, Dustin, and with our viewers / listeners. So that's why I'm doing great. How about yourself? I know you had a little bit of the froggy throat over the weekend. You're dealing with a little strain, dare I say, to the throat?
Yeah, I think a little acute laryngitis, if WebMD tells me anything.
Laryngitis.
Yeah, it did not tell me I had connectivity problems. It did tell me I have laryngitis. So my self-diagnosis, but I'm hanging in there. I'm hanging tough. You'll probably see me muting the microphone quite a bit and coughing my lungs out, but that's fine. I'm a professional somewhat. I'm here. We're going to do this damn thing.
You're so brave. You're so brave for continuing on. I appreciate that.
Brave is the perfect word for it. I like that. Thank you. But yeah, as you kind of alluded, we have some players did not get their franchise tag or a long-term deal at the tag deadline here. So got some guys that talking about possibly holding out. We got Josh Jacobs, Saquon. Sounds like Pollard. He did sign his tender, so he'll be there. No reason for him not to show up since he did sign, but he could be gone after this season, but we know he's safe. How do you feel about both Saquon and Josh Jacobs?
I have so many shares of both of them, whether in Dynasty, in Best Ball, whatever, that I'm nervous. I'm nervous because I have a vested interest to be nervous. But I wasn't as nervous until every running back in the NFL started posting on Twitter about how much bullshit it is. And then it feels like there's a storm brewing where like it could just be a running back frenzy of late holdouts. And, so I don't know. Is this like Le'Veon Bell? Truly, he's the poster child for this from a few years ago. Do you think it's like Lev Bell's, or is this different?
I don't know. I think Josh Jacobs could hold out. That one I'm more nervous about, and I did have him on our show sheet this evening as one of my trade targets, but I took him off at the last minute because I was just made me very nervous. Now I'm very nervous about that whole situation. So yeah, for him, I'm nervous. Saquon, I don't know. I have a feeling he'll probably hold out during camp, but I think he'll probably, end up playing the season. He'll end up, signing his franchise tender and actually playing. So, but yeah, Josh Jacobs, I'm not too sure about. So that one does frighten me slightly.
So we'll see. I don't know if we're going to have real resolution to this. If this drags on to week 3, week 4 of the preseason around our redraft time, then this is a consideration. Take it from me, somebody who fell into the Le'Veon Bell trap back in 2018. I said, I'm not going to be nervous about it. I'll take him like 7th overall, whatever it was. which he had fallen down like 5 spots to me, and I snatched him up. So maybe don't do that, or do the prudent thing and take the handcuff a la James Conner in that situation for whoever you do draft.
Yes, absolutely. And then the other news we had is we finally got a resolution with D-Hop going to the Titans. Wheels down on Treylon Burks and Chig, basically? Or how do you feel about this signing?
I think wheels down on Chig Okonkwo, the tight end. I think wheels steady for Treylon Burks. I'm not, I guess, as nervous as I thought I would be. We had talked a couple of weeks ago, or maybe even last week. It was basically between the Titans and the Patriots, it seemed like. So we were kind of prepped for this. And I did wonder, depending on how much they paid DeAndre Hopkins, how much that would guarantee him being the target hog there. And I still think he will get a ton of targets, but I still think that Treylon Burks is probably best suited as the 1B option as opposed to an alpha in this stage of his career. So I guess I'm not that worried about it. Are you avoiding him? Are you drafting him?
Treylon, it depends where he ends up falling. And I mean, at this point, he's probably going to fall quite a bit. So I think given where his ADP will probably end up, I wouldn't be opposed to taking him, especially as, if he's like your wide receiver 3 or 4, especially, or even later if he falls that much. I mean, then he's will be a steal, I think, because Hopkins is still going to demand the coverage, probably still get that double coverage, and then Burks, he could end up with the 2nd or 3rd cornerback now, and with his talent and his draft capital, that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing for him, going up against a little bit lesser cornerback talent there. So, and Tannehill, we've seen him chuck the ball around here and there, so I think he could sustain 2 fantasy relevant wide receivers. I'm not saying they're going to be high level fantasy assets, but Treylon Burks could be a good flex week or bye week fill in type guy.
Yeah, and talking about Tannehill just himself, obviously in 1 quarterback leagues, I'm still staying very far away from Ryan Tannehill. In Superflex leagues, now all of a sudden there's at least clarity at his position. Like, okay, it's not going to be, they can't sign DeAndre Hopkins and now start Will Levis or Malik Willis. Like that cannot happen now. That would be malfeasance. So at least you have a steady starter for the entirety of the year in your 2 QB leagues. And he could be completely usable now that he has all of these options. So I kind of like that. And I think he won't get as much of a bump in ADP as you might expect. So I think he'll still end up being a value.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that a lot, Jake. Okay, moving on. You provided beer this evening.
You betcha.
Are we drinking the same thing?
We are drinking the same thing. This is from Delta Beer Lab. This is called the Trek Holy Schist. It's a session IPA. It's a very unusual beer. That's why I wanted you to try this, because I know we fall in different brackets with IPAs. I like them a little bit more than you do. I'm not smitten with them, but this one is unlike anything I've ever tasted before. What do you think? First impressions?
Yeah, it's okay.
That's the exact opposite of the reaction that I was expecting. I was expecting one of 2 extremes, and you gave me right in the fucking middle.
I guess I'm not the biggest fan of it. I've had a couple sips. It's just, it's not that it's super bitter, but it's got just a funky, I don't know, there's something I'm not a big fan of with it.
All right. See, I thought it tasted like this great, like lemongrassy kind of vibe to it, which I'm a big fan of. I like that kind of deal. The floral notes, dare I say,
maybe that's what it is.
The front. You don't like the floral notes?
Yeah, maybe it's just a little too strong on that aspect.
All right. Well,
it's fine, but I'm just not. Yeah, I'll drink it for the episode, but that'd be about it.
Look, if you got to take some time to go grab a backup beer, you by all means, sir.
Oh no,
by all means,
it's not that bad a beer. All right, let me put it out there. It's not a beer that I'm just going to sit and stare at, wishing I had a different beer. But
well, hey, the The segment that's coming up, I think we're going to have a trade that you might sit and stare at and wish that you had a different trade. So why don't we go ahead and jump into the drunk trade of the week?
Let's do it.
Drunk, hammered drunk.
Drunk trade of the week.
And this comes to us from Twitter. This time, no Reddit. Go away, Reddit, for now. This comes from KJ, the Fantasy Tech, on Twitter. Says, as many late nights and drunk trades as I make, you'd assume I'm affiliated with Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football. Well, you are now, KJ.
That's right. Welcome to the team.
You are now affiliated with DTFF. So here's what ended up happening. All right. They receive Jahan Dotson. They receive a 2024 first round pick. They send away this year's 112 and 204 picks. Now, I did not follow up. This was from like a month ago. Sorry, my apologies, KJ, for making you wait so long, by the way. So I don't know. I'm assuming the rookie draft probably happened. Those picks probably turned into players for the 2023 side. But without knowing that, Dustin, where do you fall on this scale? How good was this trade for KJ?
I like his side of it. I think KJ did a good drunk trade here, getting Dotson in that first. The 24 first and the 112, you could basically say are a wash, assuming that the 24 first is a late one, that's going to be a wash. So you're just pushing the pick off for a year. And then Jahan Dotson for a second. Yeah, I'll take that all day long. I think it's a great trade.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it that way. I looked at it and I said, okay, 2024 first round pick for the 112. Well, it can't possibly be worse than the 112. So it can only go up. Who knows? Weird things happen in fantasy. This could end up being a high round first pick. And unless you do a ton of scouting into the yearly, rookie draft pools that come in, I don't. So I don't know if 2024's draft class is going to be worse, better than 2023. I don't really care. But from a numeric standpoint, has to be at least as good. Jahan Dotson for the 204, I think is completely reasonable. I don't think it's a slam dunk, but we like Jahan Dotson a fair amount.
I'm kind of high on him for this year. I've got a weird feeling about him, and I'm trying to snag him up wherever I can. I don't have any, definite reason for this or any film analysis or number analysis. It's just a gut feeling. It's been building. This has been a feeling that's been building over the last couple months. So it's.
Are you positive it's not indigestion? I just want to make sure.
Yes,
okay.
I am very sure. I pulled up off of Fantasy Pros just ADP for this year's rookie class. I'll start with at the 10 spot and kind of work my way down here. So you're looking at A-Chain, Bryce Young, Kendre Miller's at 12 right now. Then you got Mingo at the start of the second, Michael Mayer, Rashee Rice, Josh Downs, Roshan Johnson, Marvin Mims. So, that's kind of the area you're looking at with those two picks.
Yeah.
And for me, I still take that Jahan Dotson side.
Yeah, when you list the names out that way, it sounds a lot better to me for Jahan Dotson. I'm okay with Marvin Mims. I actually think he's the one I'd take most out of that list, and he's the lowest down on it. But I think you could easily make the case that Dotson is better than any of those. So KJ, I think we're just going to say you won this. You won this drunk trade.
Congratulations, sir.
That's a positive affiliation that you get with DTFF. It doesn't even have to be negative. So double kudos. Yeah,
absolutely. Well done, sir. Oh, all right.
That's your well done noise.
Yes.
By the way, Mr. Scamper's in the chat here proclaiming that Dustin is not a fan of Funky Somethings, as you described that beer. Just too bad. Funky Something sounds like an awesome band name.
I was going to say that, and two, I am a fan of Funky Chicken. So doing the Funky Chicken.
Is that your go-to move? Is that your wedding de facto dance?
The chicken dance? Oh God. Yeah. You gotta that in the YMCA. Something an uncoordinated white guy like myself can't screw up.
That's the one that you can get off the wall for and come and do.
Mhm.
Toronto Dave in the chat, by the way. Hey, Dave, how's it going, buddy? How you doing? Love it. Dustin, we got some meat on the bone to be had, right? Do we want to talk about some trade targets that we should be sending folks after?
Yes, let's do it. So we've each got 3 this evening, keeping the list kind of light. I mean, we could go on for hours about trade targets, but we're giving you a concise list here, guys that you really can go after. And Jake, why don't you start us off?
I'd be happy to. My first trade target, he's an injured running back. He's not going to be on anybody's most favorite list, I would say right now. He is Javonte Williams, running back for the Denver Broncos. Here's what I want to caveat this with. The other 2 guys I'm going to talk about, you can send those offers now. Send them today, in fact. But with Javonte Williams, I'm just asking for a little bit of patience. I'm asking you to wait. I know that's hard, but a few weeks into this season, I think is going to be the prime time to trade for Javonte Williams. So consider this me putting a pin in Javonte. Javonte has come out and said, week 1, I'm going to be ready. I'm going to be running violently. I'm going to be out there, getting all the carries. That's great. We've heard that a lot from a lot of running backs. And some running backs make it out there week 1. Look at J.K. Dobbins. He was saying the exact same thing last offseason. He was out there. He was not good for your fantasy team until well into the season. You could say the same thing about Cam Akers coming off of his injury. You could go back through a list of running backs who are in a fairly similar situation. Even somebody like Deontay Foreman, who was pretty solid last year in Carolina, but the year coming off of his injury, basically useless for fantasy. I think Javonte Williams is going to take some time to get back to this. So Samaje Perine, if I want to put him as a 1B for these trade targets, that could be the situation. Wait until Javonte inevitably probably has some weak showings out of the gate. When he even maybe gets the carries, but doesn't produce as much with the carries as people expect. Or maybe he gets a split workload with Samaje Perine. That's your time to attack for somebody like Javonte Williams. I think there's a strong case based on the J.K. Dobbins data that we have. You could get him for a second-round pick at that point. People might just be done with him. And we'll see what the Broncos team does. The Broncos team could be in for a complete bounce back, and they might end up being high on that team, or they could be a little bit of what we saw last year, in which case Javonte Williams' value is just going to disappear in front of your eyes. So again, just give it a little bit of time, but Javonte Williams should be somebody in 2024 that could be a linchpin of your dynasty team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that, especially if you don't need him to produce this year and you're okay to wait. I like that move a lot. Get in a year ahead, invest in him now before the price really jumps up. I was curious to hear your reasoning on this because you and I are pretty lockstep on not drafting or getting or acquiring injured running backs the year they're coming off the injury. So I like your rationale behind it. If your team can, withhold that production for up to a year.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great guy for a rebuilding team, especially like sell off whatever your good older running back assets now. Again, especially with all these contract issues coming to the surface, like unload those guys for somebody like Javonte Williams in a few weeks into the season when they're just on complete opposite ends of the spectrum. All right, who's your number 1 trade target for right now?
My number 1, well, it's number 1 on the list. It's not my number 1 overall. But my number 1 on my list here is Miles Sanders. Currently in Dynasty, he's going 61st overall. So right at the beginning of the 6th round as RB21. He decided to go back with his old coach in Carolina. His coach knows what he's capable of. I think he actually drafted him, or he was on, as part of the team when Miles was drafted. So he may have had some input on that. And they're going to rely on him. They know what they've done. He finally stayed relatively healthy last year. And when you look at what happened on this Carolina, a very bad Carolina team last year, with the likes of Deonta Foreman, Chuba Hubbard, after Christian McCaffrey left, I mean, you're looking at a guy who is a much better player than those two, and going as the RB21. I think that's criminal. I think he could easily end up being a higher end RB2. I'm not saying RB1. I mean, is it possible? Sure. Anything's possible, especially as you said, with the stuff that's going on with the running backs now. Who knows what could happen? But I reasonably, though, I think he could outperform his ADP right now, and you're going to get a real good value on him. He's going to get used in the run game. He's going to get used in the pass game. I can see him being a good safety valve for the rookie there. They don't really have a tight end to speak of someone that you usually see as a safety valve.
Hey, Hayden Hurst would like a word with you.
I know, but come on. Like, realistically, he's not the most athletic guy. I mean, more athletic than me, but as far as tight ends go, he's not the most athletic guy out on the field. So I think Miles Sanders could be that safety valve type guy and get more usage than people are expecting this year.
Yeah, let me ask you in Dynasty, if you have some trade targets in mind for sort of a this or that, let's look at guys from the same class. Would you rather have Miles Sanders or David Montgomery in Dynasty right now?
I do like David Montgomery this year. I think he's going to fill into that Jamal Williams role really well in that offense. But give me Miles Sanders just from the PPR aspect. He does catch the ball really well. And if you're playing in a PPR league, that's a guy I want. If you're playing in a standard league, I'd probably take David Montgomery.
Interesting. And yeah, David Montgomery doesn't have Jahmyr Gibbs. Miles Sanders does not have Jahmyr Gibbs there to steal away that work. Sorry,
Right.
Chuba Hubbard. Sorry, Raheem Blackshear, but I don't believe that you guys are up to the Jahmyr Gibbs quality. Yeah, I was just curious about those two specific because I think that their dynasty sort of keeper ADPs are very similar. I agree with you. I would much rather have Miles Sanders on sort of the prove it mode that he's going through right now. Well, let's keep talking about running backs. Well, do you have anything else you want to contribute about Miles?
No. I was gonna throw it back to you and ask who's next on your list.
Well, it's nobody as exciting as Booby Sanders. But I feel like this guy is getting overlooked. It's Alexander Madison. I'm talking about another running back. I get it. It's Alexander Madison. He's been in the league for 4 years, and he hasn't been the starter. Sorry that the Vikings decided to draft somebody so good to sit behind Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's not his fault. And when Alexander Madison has been called up, I understand it's a limited sample size. I swear to God, if somebody uses the limited sample size argument against Alexander Madison one more time, but he has been a top-level running back when he's called up. So here's what his finishes were in all 6 of his career starts. Only one of those times, his very first start, has he been worse than RB13. Every other time, he's been at least that or above in those. So again, I understand, grain of salt. He has proven to be a workhorse prior to the NFL. I think that's the big concern. Are they really going to give him the Dalvin Cook workload in Minnesota? Yeah, I think they can. He had 212 rushing attempts his sophomore year. He had 302 attempts his junior year. He can do it. He just hasn't needed to do it. Again, hasn't been asked. Dalvin Cook, but he's got fresh legs. He's the RB31 in Fantasy Pros consensus dynasty rankings. He's behind Dameon Pierce, RB18 in dynasty. Dalvin Cook himself, still without a team, RB26, much older as well. And Isaiah Pacheco, who's at RB28. I would take Alexander Madison far and away above any of those 3 guys. And it seems like you can get a little bit extra coming back your way then as well. So I'm doing that every single time. Maybe he doesn't last beyond this year, but how many of those guys that I just listed will? I don't know if any. So you might as well take the
And
greater
I don't know
upside.
if you saw, but Pacheco is on the PUP list to start the year, it sounds like. So he's going to be missing up to 6 games right out of the gate anyway. So I'd rather take the guy that's going to be playing those 6 games. And who do they have behind Madison right now? I mean, they got what, Tyson Chandler. They just drafted a guy this year. I mean, they're interesting guys. I think they'll be good spell guys for him, but I could see him, in like a 60-40 split with those other 2 guys, where he is going to end up getting the bulk of the carries. It will be interesting to see how he's utilized, though, if they're really going to go pass heavy in this offense, even more so now that Dalvin Cook's gone. They've got JJ there, complete stud. They brought in Hawkinson on the trade last year. He was super involved. They brought in Jordan Addison in the draft this year. They got KJ Osborne, who's flashed at times. So, I mean, are they really going to move this offense to more of like a spread type offense and really air it out? Which Madison can catch the ball. So it's like he'll still be useful regardless, and should get some good looks down by the goal line too, I would think.
Yeah, and talking about running backs and high-powered passing offenses, we're talking about Isaiah Pacheco, which, by the way, Mr. Scamper's in the chat. They did go back and clarify, I guess, that it's the preseason PUP list, so it seems like an initial error on the reporting, so won't necessarily miss regular season time, but
way to go,
not
Ian. God.
But could still have some
off-season
lulls there. Maybe CEH still steps up. Who knows? But
yeah, that's right.
Again, that's a guy in a high-powered passing offense. I would still much rather have Alexander Madison at that point. So I just think it's weird. People are so desperate for these backup running backs to finally get the starting roles. And now we have a clear situation of that happening, and nobody wants to touch him. Everybody's treating him like the turd in the punch bowl, and I don't get it.
No, I will take Madison where he's being drafted for redraft right now all day long. I mean, if I'm punting running back early and saying I'm going wide receiver heavy, or getting a Kelsey or an Andrew super early, grabbing one of those elite quarterbacks like Hurts or Mahomes early, kind of punting the running back position, having him as like my RB2, I'd be perfectly happy with that. Perfectly happy with that this year.
Fuck yeah. Let's do it. Let's make a pact to do it. Not in the league that we play in together. Obviously, that'll be a mano. We'll duke it out for that. But
yeah. Ooh, hopefully we're drafting by each other, so then we can really try to make that happen.
It'll probably look more like a slap fight, if I'm being honest. But could still be entertaining. Who knows? All right, who do you want to talk about as your next trade target?
All right, for my next 2 here, just to preface this, I am going team old guy, and I don't care. Dynasty ageism be damned. I don't care, because these next 2 I have are incredible values. You're still going to get at least 2 to 3 years really good production out of them. So there's my preface. I'm going Mike Evans here as my first guy of team old guy. Currently, he's going 92nd overall and is wide receiver 42.
Fucking what?
Wide receiver 42. Are you fucking kidding me? That is criminal. That's criminal.
That is rude.
What has he done every single year? At least 1,000 yards, at least 6 to 7 touchdowns. About half his seasons he's been in double digits. I mean, I know the quarterback situation is scary there. Yes, Chris Godwin's still there. He's a year removed from his knee injury, so he should be, back to full health. And I also thought about putting Chris Godwin on this list as well, because I think he's being undervalued too. But I mean, at wide receiver 42, I mean, you're giving up a second round pick in a trade for Mike Evans? I mean,
do you have to give up a second right now?
I'm thinking at worst. I'm thinking at worst, you're going to give up a second round pick. Like, yeah, for production that you're going to get, like I said, he's 28 or 29.
He's 29, turning 30. So he is on the cusp of that. I get it.
But he's never been a speed demon. Speed has never been his game. He's always been the go up and get it, big bodied guy. He's still going to be able to do that. He's not going to lose it. and he's going to be a big target, especially in the red zone or in the end zone for Baker or Kyle Trask or whoever they trot out there as the quarterback for that team. So I don't see why people are so down on him other than his age. I just, and like I said, wide receiver 42, he will be, I will guarantee he will be a wide receiver 2 at the end of this season.
Ooh.
Not the wide receiver 2.
Right.
Wide receiver 2.
Between 13 and 24.
24.
We understand.
Yes.
We're
Yes.
smart people. So
I just want to make sure I'm clear here.
At that risk, because that's the risk with Mike Evans that people are avoiding in Dynasty right now. One has to presume he's getting up there in age, and they think this is going to be an unusable season from him. So they say, I'm not touching him in Dynasty. Even if that is the fact, I would argue at 31 years old, Mike Evans can still be very useful on your fantasy team. If this is a garbage year, not saying it will be, if it is a garbage year, you can still absolutely get a lot of usefulness out of him after that point. But yes, I agree with you. Maybe not a guarantee. I don't know if I'm spicy enough to say guarantee, but I think he's going to easily outperform his redraft ADP, which is also in the dumpster. So it's kind of a free pass for maybe a second round pick and probably not even that. Right. I would grab him. Here's a good one. In Dynasty, this is not your other team old guy, so we're safe. Mike Evans or Brandon Cooks in Dynasty?
I kind of love both of them.
Cooks is now 30, I believe.
Yeah, still give me Mike Evans. I have a hard time trusting that Cowboys offense with Mike McCarthy there. Now that Kellen Moore is gone, I just don't know what this offense is going to look like. We saw it for years when he was calling plays in Green Bay. And basically they force fed the ball. And maybe part of that was just Rodgers, but he always force fed the ball to one wide receiver. And if there's one wide receiver in Dallas that's going to get the ball, it's going to be CeeDee Lamb. And I do expect Michael Gallup to bounce back this year as well. So that could eat into some of Brandon Cook's targets as well.
Yeah, that's fair. And just to throw another nod towards Chris Godwin's way, because I was going to put Chris Godwin on my list, but I saw Mike Evans there. We don't need to double up on Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receivers. Chris Godwin, younger than Mike Evans by 2.5 years, 3 years, close to that, something. I think people feel they trick themselves into thinking that they're almost the same age or something. And Chris Godwin, you noted with the injury coming back last year, that's a tough spot. But he didn't even look that bad to start the season. It wasn't great for fantasy, but it's not like he looked done. He didn't look spent. And I think he's going to blow people's minds this year and for many years going forward.
It's too bad you didn't have Chris Godwin, because could have been double the pleasure, double the fun here on our podcast this evening.
Well, look, it's now half of the pleasure, half of the fun, but
nobody likes that.
Maybe I'll save it with this guy, Romeo Doubs, homer pick. I had to do it. You know why I had to do it?
Why?
Because his dynasty ADP is out fucking rageous. He's the wide receiver 66 in consensus dynasty rankings over at Fantasy Pros. I love you, Fantasy Pros rankers, but what in the fuck are we doing here? Christian Watson, wide receiver 20. That's a little spicy for me. I'll be honest. I'm a little more timid about Christian Watson. It's probably where some of this is coming from. But Jaden Reed, rookie that was just drafted this year in the third round, I believe, wide receiver 49. Then we've got Romeo Doubs sitting there, wide receiver 66. The next James Jones for the Green Bay Packers, just sitting there at wide receiver 66, as if he didn't, when healthy, become the security blanket that wasn't named Alan Lazard for a very finicky Aaron Rodgers. I know there's some caveats in there, but for a rookie to come in and do that, I understand how decimated the depth chart was last year. But I mean, come on. If Sammy Watkins can't take targets away from Romeo Doubs, who can? Am I right? But seriously, Romeo Doubs at wide receiver 66, there's just as good of an outcome. And I've said this about Jaden Reed. I've said it about Christian Watson. Just as good of an outcome where he is the number one receiver on the team in terms of targets at the end of this season. And that puts a much different path forward for his dynasty value if that ends up being the case. Christian Watson absolutely could be that guy. Sure, he could. So could Jaden Reed. But when there's this many question marks around a team, and when you've seen a guy like this flash that talent, and you did look so consistent and reliable, like he looked, again, James Jones kind of reliable last year. I'm going to be betting on that at wide receiver 66 a million times over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this offense really plays out. I think Christian Watson at 20, that's a little spicy. I don't think that's so far out of the realm. I think he could put up those numbers, and return that value.
Yeah.
It's definitely possible, especially if he, takes another step forward this year, building off of last season. But yeah, with Dobbs too, I mean, he flashed, in his limited playing time. We've already heard the reports out of camp that, Dobbs is Love's guy right now, and who he goes to the most. So if that trend continues here as training camp really kicks off and we see it in the preseason games, maybe that's something to really keep an eye on. And like you said, strike before the iron is hot and get a hell of a value on him.
Yeah. And when we talked, I think it was last week when I brought up my many drunk trades, we had determined that you had thought like getting him for a second round pick made a ton of sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I don't know if the Dynasty world considers him worth a second round pick, which is why his ADP is so suppressed right now. So again, you probably don't even have to spend that to get him. You could send 2 third round picks for Romeo Dobbs. What are you going to do with those thirds? You're just going to hoard them like a little third round piggy? Just spend them on Romeo Dobbs and then feast later.
That's right. All right. Last one here. Last one here. Going with Team Old Guy, staying on that, we got Keenan Allen. He is currently going 89th overall and wide receiver 41. So kind of same tier as Mike Evans, right there, going right before him, right off the board. And I think Keenan Allen, especially this year, is going to have a hell of a season. I think he is going to be a high-end wide receiver 2. I think I could see him sneaking into low-end wide receiver 1 territory, like right on the cusp there. I think Herbert's going to have, after his down season he had last year, I think we're going to see with Kellen Moore, the aforementioned Kellen Moore coming over as OC, we're going to see this offense open up. We've got lots of good things coming, and Keenan Allen had some injuries last year. Yes, he's 31, but he's a technician. And he's going to get those balls. He's still the wide receiver 1 on this team. Mike Williams, yeah, we've had hopes for him. He's flashed at times, hasn't been able to stay healthy. So he's not any sort of threat in my book here to take over targets on this team. And Quentin Johnson, while I love him for the future, this year is not going to be his year. Next year, I could see him supplanting Mike Williams at least. But for this year, for sure, Keenan Allen's going to be the guy, and he's going to return hell of a value, and you're not going to have to give up much of anything to get him. And that's why I love him for this season especially.
The last 3 people that we talked about for sure, maybe even beyond that, again, can all be had for relative peanuts. I think that's the point. That's the point of this show, is what's the easy values that we see out there right now in Dynasty Leagues. And to your point, the easiest way to get value is by going after somebody who the world has deemed too old to be worth anything in Dynasty, because when you're 30, you're dead in Dynasty. But you've got Keenan Allen over here, and I don't want to hear the shit about him missing games. It was like one season a long time ago when he splintered his spleen or whatever the hell happened that year that was out of nowhere, and then a follow-up season where he had some other goofy-ass shit happen. And then he missed a handful of games. Was it last year, like 3 games or something? He's not injury prone. Mike Williams cannot catch a ball unless he's doing a double backflip and landing on his kidneys. So I think that you're pretty insulated from Mike Williams taking away from Allen too much this year. And I like it. He could be a Larry Fitz. I know we've said that so many times, but he could. He could be a Larry Fitzgerald type in Dynasty. I love it.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. Whew. Should we move on? Our little mini draft here, Jake?
Our little secret.
our little secret mini draft.
You bet your ass. Let's do this thing. Let me bring this up. You want to tell the folks what we're getting ourselves into here?
Yeah. So Jake threw on the show sheet here. Since it was a little bit of a shorter episode, just to kind of fill out some time, have a little fun. We haven't done one of our little mini drafts here for quite some time. We are doing classic rock albums, our favorite of all time. Maybe not necessarily everyone's favorites, but at least our favorite albums of all time. Now, the caveat here is pre-2000, correct, Jake?
Anything beyond that, I don't think you can qualify as classic. It was hard enough for me to list the 90s as classic rock, but I know that technically that is the case. So, yeah, anything beyond that, I'm done. No fucking way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So,
are we gonna spin for it, or are we gonna Rochambeau? Rock, paper, scissors?
Should we do it? Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that. I don't think that the wheel likes me. All right. Yeah, okay. Best out of one. Okay.
Okay. On three.
Shoot. On shoot. Oh. Yep. 1, 2, 3, shoot.
Okay.
All right. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Oh, again. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Yeah, you got
Boom.
it.
All right. I feel like there's a little bit of screen lag. That's all right.
No, it was fine.
All right, so I'll take the one spot. We got 10 rounds loaded up. You had said before the show, I don't know if I could do 10 rounds of classic rock albums, as if there aren't 10 or 20 classic rock albums worth discussing here. My God, but I'm really glad I got the 101 because I want to get this one off the board very quickly so there's no chance for a steal. I'm talking about Purple by the one and only Prince, a flawless album. Flawless. There's not a bad song on that album.
Flawless, huh?
Yeah, I defy you to find a bad song. It has the greatest opening, let's say, quartet of songs in existence. Purple Rain, just so you don't think that I'm fucking with you here. It starts off, Let's Go Crazy. Banger. Absolute banger. Then it goes through, oh no, they're further down the list. This isn't as cool as I thought, but it does start with Let's Go Crazy. It also has Darling Nikki, When Doves Cry, I Would Die For You, Baby I'm a Star, and of course, Purple Rain. Anthem of all anthems. I think it's I win. All right, but you get two picks now back to back.
I'm glad you think you win. That would not have even been on my radar of my album. So,
wow,
I know.
Well, now I feel foolish for taking it so early, but I still maintain it deserves it. So,
my 101 of classic rock albums, and some people may say, "Oh, this is obvious," or they may say, "This is not the best album by this band." But I'm going with Led Zeppelin 2. Talk about a flawless album. That is this one. And I think it's got my all-time favorite Led Zeppelin song on it. What Is and What Should Never Be.
Yeah, that's a very quality
song. I love that song. I don't know why. I just something about it. I love it. But yeah, going with Led Zeppelin 2 as kicking it off. And then for my second pick, I'm going with the Allman Brothers Band, Eat a Peach. Again, just classic Allman Brothers. It's the one that they got, they're kind of their breakout to the masses with. Again, just a great, great album.
What's the best song off of Eat a Peach in your estimation? What's your go-to song?
I think Whipping Post is on there.
If you can't name it in the next 5 seconds, you actually have to eat a peach on air. That's the pit and all, by the way.
No. Don't do that. No. One Way Out.
All right, I'd ask you to hum a little bit of it, but we got rights clearance that we don't need to fuck with here tonight. I'll be honest, neither of those were going to be on my list at all. So I think this could just be us jockeying back and forth for albums that the other person is never going to consider. But just on the off chance that you do, I want to make sure I get this one off of the list because it introduced me to a little genre called hard rock, metal, glam rock, whatever you want to call it. Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses.
Nice. Good choice.
Welcome to the Jungle is it was like welcoming me personally into adulthood. That's what it felt like with that. And of course, it's got all the hits. It is a greatest hits album. I said on the show sheet before this, we can't do greatest hits albums. That's cheating. That would be
It's
bullshit.
not a greatest hits album.
It's basically a greatest hits album.
It is not.
There's like 4 Guns N' Roses songs not on that album that people like. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Let me do.
No, it's
Welcome
a good
to
choice.
the Jungle. It's So Easy. Night Train. Mr. Brownstone. Paradise City. Sweet Child of Mine. I mean, you love to see it.
You do.
All right. I'm going to go with one. I felt so condescending. I'm going to go with one that might or might not be anywhere on your list as well. I could be a really big dickhole because I know one that's on your list for sure. It would not end up anywhere close to the top for me, but if I really wanted to be a douchebag, I would take it right now. But I won't. So I'm going to go with my favorite, or my next favorite. It's Doolittle by the Pixies. It's got
Nice
every
choice.
great Pixies song except for Where Is My Mind. That's on Surfer Rosa, but by overall quality of album, Doolittle is tops for me.
Nice. For my next pick, I'm going with self-titled album Van Halen. I mean, you got just some fucking bangers on there. You got Running with the Devil, You Really Got Me, Jamie's Crying, Eruption, Ain't Talking About Love. I mean, that is just, you're talking about hit after hit with GNR. I mean, and Van Halen is one of my all-time favorite bands as well. So I would have been real remiss in not having them on my list here.
Yeah, this one I'm bummed about because this one was on my list to be drafted. Yeah, Jamie, can we just talk about the fact that Jamie's Crying also spawned a majestic 90s hit from Tone Loc? Because they sampled Jamie's Crying, and which was it? Funky Cold Medina, I think, samples Jamie Crying. Ugh, amazing. All right, I'm bummed about that. What do you have next up in your queue?
I'm coming right back, and I'm going to go with Boston.
Fuck you. Fuck yourself.
That's the sound
Now
of a
I'm
snipe.
I should have been so cool with Doolittle. You would have never taken it.
No, I never would have. You are correct. So, yes, Boston. I mean, again, it's just more than a feeling. Smoking, peace of mind, foreplay, long time, hitch a ride. I mean, it's just, you can go on and on. It's a great album here.
A damn near perfect album. Dare I say? It's only like 8 songs long, but that's what's great about some of these. It's like no filler, all killer, as some 41 would say. What do you say we put a real quick pause in the draft? We've got Hunter in the chat here. We'll just take a quick intermission.
Yeah.
Any tips for Hunter's team here? Says, I got Josh Allen, Saquon, Tony Pollard, Keenan Allen, all the people we've talked about so far. Debo, Darren Waller, Jahan Dotson, more people we've talked about. He's got some kickers. He's got some defenses. The full lineup is there. Listeners, you can see his full lineup if you go to the YouTube section. Go to minute 48. Check out what we're talking about. This is a PPR redraft. So already drafted here, which is incredible, by the way. Any tips? We're talking about trade targets. He's got one of yours on the list already with Keenan Allen, obviously. Anybody on this list that you'd be trying to trade away right now? How about that? AJ Dillon, Antonio Gibson further down on this list. George Pickens, Dalton Schultz. There's my guy. There, you want to trade away target. It's the last name on your list for me, Dalton Schultz. I know Dustin and I are split on this, but I think Dalton Schultz is the new Austin Hooper. He gets traded away and his value immediately deflates. So he's pretty high up there. I think he's a fringe tight end 1 in consideration for a lot of people. Not for me. I would trade him away, try to shore up your You got Darren Waller, so you don't even really need anything crazy at tight end.
I was going to say that too, Jake. Once you start talking about Dalton Schultz, as much as I like him, you've got Waller, who I'm expecting to be at minimum top 5 this year, especially if for some reason Saquon holds out. What I would do is trade Dalton Schultz and try to get back a running back if you can. Maybe try to package like, JSN and Schultz and upgrade your running back position a little bit. I mean, you got solid wide receivers with Keenan Allen, you got Debo, Jahan Dotson, and Pickens. JSN, I really like him. Not so much for redraft this year. Maybe later in the season he's going to come on, but he's probably not someone you're going to be starting for a good, at least the first quarter to half of the season. So I would try to package him and Dalton Schultz, and then try to maybe get some insurance for that running back position there.
I like that. Yeah, there's worries. We got worries about running backs. I think they're justified. Do love AJ Dillon being on there?
Absolutely.
Woo-hoo. Big fan. All right. Hopefully that was helpful. Hunter, and back into the classic rock albums we go. I am up for my twofer. I fucked around and I found out with your last pick, so I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to go just on the off chance that you would dare take the Cars self-titled album. Doing a lot of self-titles back to back. I don't know why they're the best. They just are. All debut albums as well, I'm now realizing. But the Cars debut album is just chef's kiss. That was a weird set of noises I made. I'm sorry. But Good Times Roll, My Best Friend's Girl, just what I needed. Moving in Stereo holds a very fond place in a lot of hearts, thanks to Phoebe Cates in that pool scene in Fast Times from Ridgemont High, by the way. That was playing in the background. Just nonstop bangers from the Cars, so I had to make sure I got them. This is where I wonder. This is where, again, I could be a real big asshole. There's an obvious one that I know is going to end up on your list. I just don't know if I want it that bad to be the asshole who steals it from you. So I think I'll give you a pass. I'm instead going to move over to the Blue album from our friends Weezer. Just makes the cutoff here. We are including 90s. I debated with them. We had an alternative 90s, I think it was a bands draft, if I'm not mistaken, a while ago. I had, I think, missed out on Weezer, if I'm not mistaken. I think you stole Weezer from me, and I will not let that happen again. Their 94 debut, technically self-titled as well, if we want to get nitpicky here. Just, it's got all of the I don't want to say the best songs. They put out some good stuff after, but it's just never going to be as good as their debut. Best song, maybe like top 10 90s songs, Say It Ain't So, is on this album.
Oh, I was going to say
more.
I was going to say the Sweater Song.
Sweater Song, another absolute banger.
I love that. Is probably my favorite Weezer song. I love that one so much.
It's an amazing song. My Name is Jonas. I love that. Surf Wax America.
One.
Buddy Holly, of course. Everybody still loves Buddy Holly. You know, some good shit. All right, over to you, Dustin, for your twofer.
All right, this is where things are going to get interesting.
Going to get weird with it.
It might. It might. I think for my first pick here, and I doubt this will be one that you will have on it, but I don't care. I love this album. And that is Meatloaf, Bad Outta Hell.
You are correct. I was not going to have Meatloaf on here, but I respect it. Here's why. Can I just say here's why? Because that album, it's like 3 songs. It's just that those 3 songs are all like 20 minutes apiece. And so it ends up being a full album.
Yeah,
it's outrageous. Great. It's absolutely outrageous.
It's operatic. It's rock. There's some spoken word in it. It's and like you said, there's about 3 songs there, about 20 minutes each. So you can just listen to it and you're like, we're still in this. Like, it's great.
Yeah. You don't really have to shuffle songs. That's not an album that demands that in any.
No, not at all.
I respect it. I respect it.
All right. So for this next one here, I'm going a little bit newer. as far as classic rock goes. And I'm going to go with Metallica, the Black Album. Enough
right.
said. Enough said. I don't have to say anything else about it. We all know that album. It is great. And I know that people are going to say that's not their best album, but it's
Yep.
my favorite of the Metallica albums. So that's
Okay.
why it's on my list.
You're going to have a lot of people
it's
in your
fine.
mentions calling you a sellout.
That's fine.
For the Black Album. I'm not one of them, by the way.
Hey, at least I'm not the Saint Anger sellout.
Quick impression of Lars Ulrich drums on the Saying Anger album. All of it. Just that's all it is the entire way through. All right. I get up for two for. I'm actually a little ashamed that I never even considered Metallica for this. And I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. They are classic rock, obviously, but I just they don't register for me. Here's a band that has to register for you. You can quibble about the rock portion of this. I don't give a shit. I'm putting in Rubber Soul from the Beatles. Look, I like the Beatles. I don't think that's a controversial statement, but people like to be anti-controversial and say that the Beatles are terrible, and it seems like there's a growing population saying the Beatles are terrible. I don't think that's true, but I also don't think that everything that they ever did was 100% perfect either. But this album, pretty goddamn close. Pretty goddamn close. It doesn't have as many of their hits on it. That's how I'm still making myself a cool guy. Because I put the Beatles on here, but it's not like, oh, help, Yellow Submarine. It's got the deep cuts on here. Now I'm going to go in the complete opposite direction. I went Mr. Cool Guy, hipster, Beatles dude. Now I'm leaning into my doofy shit, and it's time, buddy. It's time that you got Snipes. Sports by Huey motherfucking Lewis and the News. Welcome to the team.
I thought about that one, and I thought the same thing. Like not the definition of super hard rock, but
no.
That one album or the one half of that album is just pure hits. Every single song on that one on side A is just amazeballs.
Goddamn right. Basically a greatest hits side one, if you will. So I had to do that one. All right, but it goes over to you. How do you finish up after the Black Album?
So the next one I'm going for is one of my personal favorite albums, and that is Thin Lizzy Jailbreak.
Ooh.
There's a lot of great songs on this album. I listen to it all the time at our house. It is on constantly. We have it on vinyl. Yeah, I'm one of those guys. It is in our rotation of albums we play on a regular basis. It is just that good and very underrated, I feel like.
Has great songs such as Jailbreak, for example. You might not have thought. All right, what is your second here? You've only got 3 spots. You gotta be careful. What makes the cut?
Oh, this one again. I'm going back to the 90s. It's an album that I just personally love, and that is Marilyn Manson, Mechanical Animals. Ooh. I feel like that is a flawless album from beginning to end. Not a bad song on it. It's produced wonderfully. It's one of my all-time favorite albums.
Wow. I knew you were a big Marilyn Manson guy. You got to see Marilyn Manson perform in concert. I know this about you. You said it was one of the best concerts you've been to.
Yeah, it absolutely was.
And I believe you. All right. No fucking around here. I fucked around a little bit because that was a lot of fun to do, taking Huey Lewis in the News. It didn't get the reaction that I wanted. It didn't get my Boston reaction, for example, but it's fine. It's fine. It's not great, but it's fine. I am going to take Full Moon Fever by my guy, Tom Petty. We talked about concerts. This is on my wish list. This is the one that got away. This is the one I could have seen multiple times at Summerfest in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I did not. But Full Moon Fever, yeah, it has most of his hits. It has your radio darlings. It has your free fallins. It has your Won't Back Downs, but it also has You're So Bad, which is my favorite Tom Petty song of all time, along with just a host of other delights. Running Down a Dream, I hear it on the radio all the time. I never get sick of it, and I refuse to. My next one is a little tougher, but I'm just going to do it. I got to get myself some street cred again. And this is the album that turned me into what I thought was a pretty cool, 16-year-old. I'm talking Are You Experienced from Jimi Hendrix.
Oh,
It's got all the Hendrix that you want outside of 2 songs, basically. Doesn't have Crosstown Traffic, but it has everything else.
And I could type in your last pick here because I know what it's going to be.
Are you sure? Are you positive?
I am.
We'll see. All right, we'll see. What is up for you for your last 2 picks? Are you going to be an asshole and snipe the one that you think that I want?
Oh no, it's because it's not on my list, so it's a very special one just for you.
All right.
But I think with my second to last pick here, I would be remiss. This is one of the first albums I remember listening to. I was 10 years old, 9, 10 years old. And I loved this album. I still listen to it front to back. I think it's a great album. It is Poison. Open Up and Say Ah.
I completely forgot about this album, if I'm being honest. I forgot about Poison, if I'm being honest. But you're right. This does have some absolute bangers on it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does.
Does this have Look What the Cat Dragged In?
No.
On this one?
No.
Is that from the album Look What the Cat Dragged In?
Yes. No, this has Fallen Angel.
Oh,
it's got Rocking Horse. Bad to Be Good.
Does it have Every Rose Has Its Thorn?
Yes, it does.
All right. Okay.
So.
All right. Just want to make sure.
Yeah. All right.
All right. What are you wrapping up with? What's your Mr. Irrelevant?
I think
I technically get that.
I think I'm gonna go with Dire Straits, Brothers in Arms.
Ooh.
I'm a big Dire Straits fan. I love Dire Straits, and this one has the Walk of Life on it. It's got Money for Nothing.
Sure. I want my MTV and the like. Yeah. What did you think I was going to put in here before I type it? I'm curious if it's the exact same.
It's going to be Nickelback.
You fucking asshole. Now part of me wants to put it in here just because, but you know what? I don't think they qualify because they were 2000s. Maybe they had one in the 90s. I'm not sure. I'm not gonna cop to knowing that, even though I know that there was one album that was before the 2000s.
I'll have it in my Google search history. I don't care.
No, they had one. I think Silver Side Up came out in the late 90s.
That was 2001. The State came out in 1998.
State. All right. Well, I feel better about it, actually. I feel better for not knowing. I'm going to have a shit ton of honorable mentions. And I'll be honest, the sports pick is actually kind of ruining my day right now because it didn't get the reaction that I wanted from you. And it doesn't really belong in the number 7 spot. So now it's just this taint of my draft. But I'm going to finish the only way I know how with The Color and the Shape by the Foo Fighters. Who else?
Obviously.
For me, am I going to wrap up a draft with? You talk about greatest hits. Does it have all their radio hits on it? No, because they've got thousands, it feels like. But it's got all the ones that are nearest and dearest to my hearts, including Everlong and My Hero, obviously, along with just front to back. It's a no skips album for me. So it belongs on the list. We did it.
We sure did.
It.
Only a couple of snipes. Not too bad.
Yeah.
But, when
two
you,
big ones on your part.
When you give it, like a 40-year period here of music to choose from, chances are we're not going to have that many overlaps here as far as our go-to albums. So
True. So many honorable mentions, though.
Oh, I mean,
I thought about putting Zeppelin 4 on here.
So did I.
I thought I'd be a poser a little. I was like, oh, he let off with Zeppelin 2. That's obviously the cooler album of the two. Zeppelin 4, again, like a greatest hits
Amazing,
package.
yeah.
But is fucking amazing. I almost put Shake Your Moneymaker from the Black Crowes. Love the Black Crowes. Love that album. Almost put 16 Stone by Bush. That was a big album for me. That was like the post-grunge kind of era. Almost put Bowie's Let's Dance on here. I felt like that wasn't me being true to myself. Almost put Pearl Jam, a couple of Pearl Jam albums. Almost put a couple of Smashing Pumpkins albums. Just felt like we might be duplicating from the alt rock draft that we did.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking the same. Like, I wanted to go Nirvana, obviously. I was going to go with some Smashing Pumpkins. Thought about maybe a little Steely Dan. I'm a big Steely Dan fan. Yeah, it's great stuff. The Doors, obviously, would have been a great one to have on there. So yeah, there was a ton of albums we could have went with here.
Could have slapped the bass to some Rush for sure.
Absolutely.
You know, 2112 could have found its way onto here easily.
Yep. But all in all, I feel like this was a good draft. That was a lot of fun. I'm glad you suggested it, Jake.
Woo! We did it. And by the way, suggest if you want more of these, if you're interested in this type of thing, like we are, to split up a little bit of the fantasy football. We love fantasy football. We love it, but we love drafting arguably more than we love fantasy football. And so because we can't draft officially for another, month and a half, we got to fill the time somehow.
That's right. So yeah, any suggestions you have, please, hit us up. You can hit my partner at Jake Trowbridge on Twitter. You can hit the podcast at Drinking Fantasy if you want to drop a DM there. Or if you so choose, you can hit me up at FF Dusty Duck. Go do all the things we tell you to do every week. Give us 5 stars. Give us a rate and review. Sign up, subscribe, YouTube. Do all that stuff. Because we're dropping content. You get to see us live. Is a great thing. And yes, please, more drunk trades, especially as things start to kick up here at training camp. Now is the time to make some trades to improve your team to start the season. So you make any drunk ones, hit us up. We'd love to hear about it as well. And with that, we'll let you go for this evening, folks. Keep drinking and talking fantasy football.
Cheers, FFers.